The conference room felt like a tomb. 20 pairs of eyes stared at me, some with barely concealed smirks, others with that cold satisfaction you see in vultures circling dying prey. My hands trembled as I clutched the folder containing what I thought was my termination notice. 6 months. 6 months of whispered conversations that stopped when I walked by. 6 months of watching colleagues I'd considered friends turn into strangers. 6 months of feeling like I was drowning in quicksand while everyone watched from the shore. It started with Marcus. Marcus Henderson, the golden boy of our marketing department, tall, charming, with that politician smile that made clients melt and bosses promote. He joined our tech startup 18 months ago, and within weeks, he was the unofficial leader of our team. The kind of guy who remembered birthdays, brought coffee for late shifts, and somehow always knew exactly what to say. I should have seen it coming. The first crack appeared during the Johnson account presentation. I'd been working on the campaign for weeks, pulling late nights, refining every detail. It was my baby, my chance to prove I belonged in the big leagues. But when presentation day arrived, Marcus stood up with my slides, my concepts, my words flowing from his mouth like he'd birthed them from his own mind. Alex did some great preliminary research, he said, throwing me a bone like I was a grateful dog. Really helped shape the foundation of what we've built here. The room nodded, the client smiled, my boss, Janet, scribbled notes with approval, and I sat there, watching my work get credited to someone else, feeling my stomach twist into knots. But that was just the beginning. Marcus was smart, surgical. He didn't steal credit outright, that would be too obvious. Instead, he began a campaign of whispered poison, casual comments dropped in meetings, concerned observations shared with the right people at the right moments. Alex seems overwhelmed lately. I heard him tell Janet outside her office. Maybe we should redistribute some of the workload. I'm worried about Alex's attention to detail, he mentioned to our senior director during a coffee break. Found some errors in the quarterly reports that could have been embarrassing. The errors were typos, minor formatting issues that any normal person would have just fixed and moved on, but Marcus turned them into evidence of my declining performance. Within a month, the whispers started reaching my ears. Sarah from accounting pulled me aside one afternoon, her voice low and urgent. Alex, I don't know what's going on, but people are saying things about your work, about your attitude. What kind of things? She glanced around nervously. That you've been cutting corners, that you're not a team player anymore. Marcus mentioned to several people that you've been difficult to work with on projects. My blood turned to ice. Difficult how? He's saying you take credit for other people's ideas, that you're territorial about assignments and don't share information with the team. The irony was so sharp it could have cut glass. Marcus was accusing me of exactly what he was doing to me. I tried to fight back, but it was like swinging at shadows. How do you defend against whispers? How do you prove a negative? Every time I tried to address the rumors directly, I looked defensive, paranoid, crazy. I never said I was difficult to work with, I protested to Janet during a one-on-one meeting. No one's saying you're difficult, Alex, she replied, but her eyes wouldn't meet mine. We just want to make sure you're feeling supported and that communication with the team is flowing smoothly. Communication was flowing, right around me, like water around a stone. Marcus was building an alliance, casual lunches with key players, after-work drinks that I somehow never got invited to anymore. Corporate team-building events where I found myself sitting alone while everyone else clustered around his magnetic personality. The poisoning was systematic. He'd volunteer to help with my projects, then point out flaws in my work during team meetings. He'd offer to take over challenging assignments when I was struggling, then present the completed work as his own vision with my assistance. He turned my dedication into obsessiveness, my attention to detail into nitpicking, my quiet work style into antisocial behavior. Alex doesn't seem to be enjoying the collaborative environment we're building here. He told the team during one of our weekly check-ins, maybe they'd be more comfortable with independent projects. Independent projects, code for isolation, code for irrelevance. The breaking point came during the Morrison Industries pitch. Morrison was our biggest potential client, a Fortune 500 company looking to rebrand their entire digital presence. The contract was worth $2 million and could make our startup a major player in the industry. Janet assigned the pitch to our team, with Marcus designated as lead presenter. But I knew Morrison's CEO, David Morrison, from college. We'd been roommates sophomore year, had kept in touch over the years through occasional LinkedIn messages and Christmas cards. When I mentioned this connection to Janet, her eyes lit up like slot machine jackpots. "That's perfect, Alex. You can be our in with Morrison. Set up some informal conversations, get a feel for what they're really looking for." I spent 2 weeks cultivating that relationship. Long phone calls with David, casual coffee meetings where he shared his vision for the company's future. He was frustrated with their current stuffy corporate image, wanted something fresh, innovative, disruptive. I took detailed notes, recorded our conversations with his permission, built a comprehensive understanding of not just what Morrison Industries needed, but what David Morrison wanted on a personal level. Then I made my mistake. I shared everything with the team, every insight, every preference, every personal detail that could give us an edge. I believed in collaboration. I believed that a rising tide lifts all boats. I believed that if we won together, we'd all benefit. Marcus absorbed it all like a sponge soaking up water. The day before the presentation, he called an emergency team meeting. "I've been talking to some contacts in the industry," he announced, "and I think we need to pivot our approach. Morrison isn't looking for disruptive innovation. They want sophisticated evolution, classic corporate messaging with modern polish." It was the exact opposite of everything David had told me. I raised my hand tentatively. "Actually, based on my conversations with David Morrison, I think they're specifically trying to move away from that traditional corporate image." Marcus's smile was patronizing. "David Morrison might be the CEO, but he's not the decision maker for marketing initiatives. That would be their CMO, Sarah Chen. And from what I understand about Chen's preferences," he launched into a detailed analysis of Sarah Chen's marketing philosophy, complete with examples from her previous companies. It was impressive, thorough, and completely wrong. But Marcus delivered it with such confidence that the room started nodding along. "Where did you get this information?" I asked. "Industry research, professional networks. You know, the kind of broad perspective you develop when you've been in marketing for a while." The implication was clear. I was small-time, limited to one personal connection, while he had the big picture. Janet looked between us, then at the presentation materials we'd prepared. "We need to make a decision. Marcus, you're the lead on this. What's your call?" "We go with the sophisticated evolution approach, professional, polished, exactly what a Fortune 500 company expects from a serious marketing firm." I watched my weeks of research get discarded like yesterday's newspaper. But worse than that, I watched Marcus take the insights I'd gathered from David and subtly incorporate them into his new framework, twisted and repackaged to fit his narrative. The presentation was a disaster. David Morrison sat in our conference room with his CMO and 2 other executives, listening to Marcus pitch exactly the kind of corporate messaging they were trying to escape. I watched his face change from interest to confusion to barely concealed irritation. "This feels very traditional," Sarah Chen said diplomatically. "We were hoping for something more innovative, more disruptive to our current market position." Marcus didn't miss a beat. "Of course, we have some more aggressive concepts we can explore. Alex has been working on some alternative approaches that might be more aligned with your vision." He turned to me with that smile, the one that looked supportive but felt like a blade between the ribs. "Why don't you walk them through your ideas, Alex?" I wasn't prepared. I had notes, fragments, pieces of concepts that I'd been developing based on my conversations with David, but nothing presentation ready. Marcus had deliberately ambushed me, putting me in a position where I'd either look unprepared or like I was trying to steal the spotlight. I stumbled through an improvised pitch, hitting the key points David had shared with me, but without the polish and structure of a proper presentation. I could see the Morrison team responding positively to the content, but they were clearly confused about why this approach hadn't been our lead strategy. After they left, Janet was furious. "What the hell was that, Alex? Marcus prepares a comprehensive presentation and you try to undermine it with some half-baked alternative. I wasn't trying to undermine anything. Those were the concepts we developed based on my conversations with Morrison's CEO. Conversations you should have shared with the team instead of developing your own side strategy. I did share them. I shared everything. Marcus decided to go in a different direction. Janet's sigh was heavy with disappointment. This is exactly what I've been hearing about, Alex. The territorial behavior, the communication issues. We can't have team members going rogue during client presentations. We lost the Morrison account. 2 days later, Marcus scheduled individual meetings with each team member. I wasn't invited to these meetings, but I heard about them through whispers and side conversations. He was conducting informal performance reviews, collecting feedback about team dynamics, building a case. The message was clear: Alex was the problem. Marcus painted himself as a concerned team leader trying to hold everything together while dealing with a difficult colleague. He spoke about my attitude issues and collaborative challenges with a kind of regretful concern that made him look like the reasonable one trying to work with an unreasonable person. I've really tried to include Alex in team activities, he told Sarah during one of these conversations. But there's this defensiveness, this resistance to feedback. It's creating tension for everyone. Sarah, who had been one of my closest work friends, started keeping her distance. When I asked her about it, she was diplomatically vague. People are just saying you seem stressed lately, Alex. Maybe you should consider taking some time off, getting your head together. Time off, the kiss of death in corporate culture. The polite way of suggesting someone wasn't cutting it anymore. The walls were closing in. My work assignments became smaller, less significant. I was excluded from important client calls and strategic meetings. When I asked Janet about it, she gave me corporate speak about optimizing team dynamics and playing to everyone's strengths. Marcus, meanwhile, was glowing. Janet praised his leadership during team meetings. He got assigned to the biggest projects, the most important clients. He was the golden boy, the future star, while I was becoming the cautionary tale. The final poison drop came during our quarterly performance reviews. I'd been with the company for 3 years, had consistently high ratings, had brought in significant clients, and delivered successful campaigns. But when I sat down with Janet for my review, the conversation felt like a trial. Alex, I want to be direct with you. There have been concerns raised about your performance and attitude this quarter. She slid a folder across the desk. Inside were printed emails, incident reports, documented complaints, all from members of my team. All describing a pattern of unprofessional behavior, missed deadlines, poor communication, and resistance to collaboration. My hands shook as I read through the accusations. Every project frustration had been documented and exaggerated. Every disagreement had been framed as insubordination. Every moment of stress or confusion had been recorded as evidence of declining performance. Marcus's fingerprints were on every page. This doesn't seem like the Alex we hired. Janet continued. You've always been reliable, creative, hardworking, but something has changed this year. Multiple team members have expressed concerns about working with you. Who? What team members? I can't share specifics, but the feedback has been consistent. Issues with collaboration, communication, taking credit for others' work, resistance to team decisions. She might as well have been reading from Marcus's script. Janet, I think there's been some miscommunication, or maybe deliberate misinformation. I've been doing good work, meeting all my deadlines, contributing to every project. The results speak for themselves, Alex. We lost the Morrison account after you undermined Marcus's presentation. The Greenfield campaign was delivered 2 days late because you insisted on unnecessary revisions. The quarterly reports had multiple errors that our director had to catch. Each accusation hit like a physical blow. The Morrison account was lost because Marcus ignored direct client feedback. The Greenfield campaign was late because Marcus kept changing the requirements and scope. The quarterly report errors were minor formatting issues that had been blown completely out of proportion. But I couldn't prove any of it. Marcus had been careful to cover his tracks, to make every accusation sound reasonable, every criticism look objective. I'm going to recommend that you take some time to reflect on these issues, Janet said. Maybe consider whether this position is the right fit for your career goals. The right fit for my career goals. Corporate speak for, start looking for another job. I walked out of that meeting feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. 3 years of work, 3 years of dedication, 3 years of building relationships and developing skills, all destroyed by 6 months of systematic poisoning. But Marcus had made one crucial mistake. He'd assumed that I was isolated, that I had no allies, no connections beyond the immediate team he'd turned against me. He'd been so focused on poisoning the well within our department that he'd forgotten about the broader company structure. He'd forgotten about Oliver Chen. Oliver was our chief technology officer, a quiet, methodical man who rarely spoke in meetings but seemed to observe everything. He'd been with the startup since its founding, had built our entire technical infrastructure, and commanded a different kind of respect than the flashy marketing personalities. I'd worked with Oliver on several projects over the years, particularly campaigns that required technical integration or data analysis. He appreciated my attention to detail, my willingness to dive deep into technical specifications, my habit of asking the right questions instead of just nodding along. 2 days after my performance review, Oliver knocked on my cubicle. Alex, do you have a few minutes? I'd like to discuss the Morrison Analytics integration project. Morrison Analytics, a small subsidiary of Morrison Industries that handled data processing for their parent company. We'd been working on a technical integration that would allow us to demonstrate our capabilities for future projects with the Morrison family of companies. I followed Oliver to his office, expecting a routine technical discussion. Instead, he closed the door and turned to face me with an expression I'd never seen before. I understand you've been having some challenges with team dynamics recently. My stomach dropped. Had Marcus's poison reached even Oliver's technical department? I want you to know that I've been watching the situation carefully, and I've been conducting my own research into some of the claims that have been made about your performance. He opened his laptop and turned it toward me. On the screen was a detailed analysis of project timelines, deliverable quality, client feedback, and team contributions. But these weren't the subjective performance metrics from my review. These were hard data points pulled from our project management systems, email archives, and client communication logs. According to our actual records, your project delivery times have remained consistent over the past 6 months. Your quality metrics have actually improved. Client feedback on projects you've led or contributed to has been overwhelmingly positive. I stared at the screen, hardly believing what I was seeing. Objective data that contradicted every accusation in my performance review. Furthermore, Oliver continued, I've been tracking the attribution of ideas and strategies across our major campaigns. The Morrison Industries research that informed our initial pitch strategy was entirely your work, documented in email threads and meeting notes. The Greenfield campaign concepts that won industry recognition last month. Your designs, your copy, your strategic framework. He scrolled through more pages of analysis. What I'm seeing is a pattern of work being redistributed in terms of credit and blame. Your successes being attributed to others, their failures being attributed to you. Oliver's fingers drummed on his desk. I've also been monitoring our internal communication patterns. There's been a coordinated effort to document and report incidents involving your work, led primarily by Marcus Henderson. The frequency and timing of these reports suggest deliberate campaign rather than organic performance concerns. Why are you telling me this? Because data doesn't lie, Alex. People do, politics do, but data doesn't lie. He leaned forward. Also because I've been tasked with leading a new initiative that's going to reshape this company's future. We're expanding beyond marketing services into comprehensive digital transformation consulting. It's a $50 million opportunity that could triple our company size within 2 years. $50 million. I tried to process the magnitude of what he was describing. The CEO wants this initiative to succeed. It's the difference between remaining a small marketing firm and becoming a major player in the tech consulting space. And for this initiative to work, we need people who understand both the technical and marketing sides of digital transformation. What does this have to do with me? Everything, Alex. This initiative needs someone who can bridge the gap between technical implementation and marketing strategy. Someone who asks the right questions, pays attention to details, builds genuine client relationships rather than just schmoozing them. Someone who produces results rather than just taking credit for them. My heart started racing. Are you offering me a position on this initiative? I'm recommending you for team lead. $50,000 salary increase, stock options, direct report to me and the CEO. You'd be building and managing a team of 15 people within 6 months. The room felt like it was spinning. A week ago, I was on the verge of being fired. Now Oliver was offering me the biggest promotion of my career. There's just one thing, he continued. The CEO wants to make this announcement in a way that sends a clear message about the kind of performance and character this company values. He's planning to announce your promotion at this Friday's all-hands meeting, in front of the entire company. This Friday, 4 days away, the same day that Janet had scheduled my follow-up performance review, which I'd assumed would be my formal termination discussion. Oliver, I need to ask you something directly. Do you know what's been happening to me? The team dynamics issues, the performance concerns. His smile was slight, but unmistakable. Alex, I know everything that happens in this company. Every email, every project file, every meeting recording. I've been documenting Marcus Henderson's activities for the past 4 months. The past 4 months, he'd been watching this whole time. We needed to see how far he would go. We needed to understand whether this was impulsive behavior or a systematic pattern, and we needed to see how you would respond under pressure. This was a test? Not intentionally at first, but when the pattern became clear, we realized it was an opportunity to evaluate character under adversity. Marcus showed us who he really is, and so did you. I thought about the past 6 months. The frustration, the isolation, the feeling of drowning while everyone watched from the shore. You could have stopped it, you could have intervened. Yes, we could have, but then we wouldn't have learned what we needed to know about both of you. Marcus revealed himself as someone who destroys others to advance himself. You revealed yourself as someone who maintains integrity and work quality even when under attack. Oliver closed his laptop. This company is about to grow exponentially. We need to know who we can trust with that growth. Friday's announcement isn't just about promoting you, Alex. It's about making a statement about what kinds of behaviors get rewarded here. The next 3 days were surreal. I went to work knowing that my life was about to change dramatically, but I couldn't tell anyone. Marcus continued his subtle campaign of undermining comments and concerned observations. Janet continued treating me like a problem employee who needed managing. My team members continued keeping their distance, convinced that I was dragging down their collaborative environment. I watched it all with new eyes, seeing the mechanisms that Marcus had built to isolate and discredit me. The casual comments that planted seeds of doubt. The documented incidents that looked objective but were deliberately framed to make me look bad. The way he positioned himself as the reasonable voice trying to work with someone difficult. It was masterful, in a sociopathic kind of way. Thursday evening, I got a call from Oliver. Tomorrow's going to be intense, Alex. Are you ready? Honestly, I'm nervous. What if Janet tries to object? What if Marcus has some final card to play? Let me ask you something. Do you believe you deserve this promotion? I thought about the past 3 years. The late nights, the successful campaigns, the client relationships I'd built, the problems I'd solved. Yes, I do. Then trust the process, and trust that the truth has a way of revealing itself. Friday morning felt like preparing for battle. I got to the office early before most of the team arrived. Marcus was already there, of course, probably preparing for whatever presentation or discussion he had planned. He nodded to me with that same patronizing smile he'd been wearing for months. Alex, how are you feeling about today's review with Janet? He knew about the performance follow-up meeting. Of course he did. He'd probably been coaching Janet on what to say, what documentation to present, how to frame my termination as a necessary business decision. I'm ready for whatever comes next, I said. That's the right attitude. Sometimes change is exactly what someone needs to find the right fit for their career. The right fit for their career. He was using Janet's exact words from our previous meeting. The script was so carefully coordinated. The morning crawled by. I attended meetings, responded to emails, worked on projects, all while feeling like I was walking through someone else's life. Marcus held court at the coffee machine, discussing weekend plans with colleagues who'd stopped including me in casual conversations months ago. At 10:30, Janet called me into her office. Alex, I want to follow up on our discussion from earlier this week. Have you had time to think about the feedback we discussed? I have, Janet. I've been reflecting on my role here and my future with the company. She leaned forward, hands clasped in front of her. I'm glad to hear that because I think we need to have a serious conversation about whether this position is working out for either of us. Here it comes. The termination conversation that Marcus had been building toward for 6 months. Before we continue, she said, I want you to know that this isn't personal. You're talented, you have good instincts, but sometimes the fit just isn't right. And when team dynamics become this strained, Janet, I interrupted, I think there might be some information you're not aware of regarding the team dynamic situation. Her expression tightened. Alex, we've been over this. Multiple team members have expressed concerns. The pattern is clear and documented. Have you discussed these concerns with Oliver Chen? The question caught her off guard. Oliver, why would I involve the CTO in marketing team personnel issues? Because the data tells a different story than the anecdotal reports you've been receiving. Alex, I don't know what you're trying to accomplish here, but… Her phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID and her expression changed. I'm sorry, I need to take this. Can we continue this conversation this afternoon? Of course. As I left her office, I caught sight of Oliver walking past the marketing department. He nodded slightly, and I realized that the phone call had been his. He was buying time, making sure nothing happened before the all-hands meeting. The afternoon dragged like a wounded animal. At 3 p.m., the entire company gathered in our main conference room for the weekly all-hands meeting. These were usually routine affairs, company updates, project announcements, occasionally recognition for outstanding performance. I sat in the back row, trying to control my racing heart. Marcus sat near the front with the other team leads, confident and relaxed. Janet sat with the other department managers, probably still planning her afternoon conversation with me about my employment future. Our CEO, David Park, took the podium. David was a quiet, intense man who'd built our startup from nothing into a multi-million-dollar company through careful strategy and relentless work ethic. He rarely spoke at length during these meetings, preferring to let department heads deliver updates. Today, I want to talk about growth, he began. Not just revenue growth or client growth, but the kind of growth that defines who we become as a company. The room was quiet, everyone sensing that this wasn't a routine announcement. Over the past year, we've been developing a new initiative that will transform our business model. We're expanding beyond marketing services into comprehensive digital transformation consulting. This represents a $50 million opportunity that will triple our company size within 24 months. Murmurs rippled through the room. This was news to most people, including the department managers. This kind of expansion requires leadership that combines technical expertise with marketing insight, strategic thinking with execution capability, and most importantly, the kind of character and integrity that our clients will trust with their digital futures. David's eyes scanned the room. Character isn't something you can teach or train, it's something you reveal under pressure. How do people respond when they're challenged? Do they maintain their standards, or do they compromise? Do they build others up, or do they tear them down to advance themselves? I could feel people shifting in their seats. This was getting uncomfortably personal for a corporate announcement. For the past 6 months, we've been observing our team dynamics carefully. We've been watching how people handle stress, conflict, competition. We've been documenting not just results, but the methods people use to achieve those results. My mouth went dry. He was talking about Marcus's campaign against me, in front of the entire company. What we've discovered is that some team members maintain their integrity and work quality even when under attack. They continue producing excellent results despite being systematically undermined. They refuse to engage in political games even when those games are being played against them. David paused, letting his words sink in. Others revealed different character traits. They showed us that they're willing to destroy colleagues to advance themselves. They demonstrated sophisticated skills in manipulation, reputation destruction, and credit theft. They proved that they view their teammates as obstacles to overcome rather than partners to collaborate with. The room was completely silent now. Everyone was looking around, trying to figure out who he was talking about. The Digital Transformation Initiative requires a team leader who embodies the values this company stands for. Someone who builds instead of destroys. Someone who elevates others instead of diminishing them. Someone who creates value instead of just taking credit for it. David looked directly at me. Alex, would you please come to the front of the room? Every head in the room turned toward me. I could feel the shock, the confusion, the disbelief. This was supposed to be my termination day. Instead, the CEO was calling me forward for what sounded like a major announcement. My legs felt unsteady as I walked to the front of the room. Marcus's face was a mask of confusion and growing alarm. Janet looked like she'd been hit with a brick. Alex has been selected to lead our new digital transformation initiative, David announced. This role comes with a $50,000 salary increase, significant stock options, and responsibility for building a team of 15 consultants over the next 6 months. The room erupted. Applause from some corners, shocked silence from others. I could see colleagues who'd been avoiding me for months, trying to process this reversal of fortune. This decision is based on comprehensive analysis of performance data, client feedback, project outcomes, and character assessment under pressure. David continued. Alex has consistently delivered exceptional work while maintaining professional integrity, even when facing systematic attempts to undermine their reputation and career. Now the room was completely still. David was publicly acknowledging that someone had been deliberately sabotaging me. We've documented a pattern of workplace manipulation that included credit theft, reputation assassination, false documentation of performance issues, and coordinated efforts to isolate a team member. This behavior is antithetical to everything this company stands for. Marcus had gone completely pale. He knew what was coming. Marcus Henderson, please see me in my office immediately after this meeting. Janet Morrison, I need to speak with you as well regarding your role in this situation. The silence was deafening. No one moved, no one spoke, no one seemed to breathe. David turned back to me. Alex, do you have anything you'd like to say to the team? My mind was spinning. 6 months of humiliation, isolation, and professional devastation had just been reversed in the span of 5 minutes. Marcus, the golden boy who'd been destroying my career for his own advancement, was about to face the consequences of his actions. I want to thank everyone who supported me during a difficult period, I began, my voice steadier than I'd expected. And I want to assure you that this new role will be about building people up, not tearing them down. We're going to create something amazing together. I didn't look at Marcus. I didn't need to. I could feel his world collapsing from across the room. After the meeting, people approached me with a mixture of congratulations and awkward apologies. Colleagues who'd been avoiding me for months suddenly wanted to explain themselves, to distance themselves from Marcus's campaign, to position themselves for the new initiative. Sarah from accounting was among the first. Alex, I had no idea what was really happening. Marcus made it seem like you were the problem, like he was trying to help the team deal with a difficult situation. I understand, I said. And I did. Marcus had been sophisticated in his manipulation, making everyone complicit in my isolation while believing they were solving a problem rather than causing one. Oliver appeared at my elbow. How does it feel? Surreal. This morning I thought I was getting fired. This morning, Marcus thought you were getting fired too. I looked toward David's office, where Marcus was presumably learning about his own fate. What's going to happen to him? That's between him and David, but I can tell you that our company has zero tolerance for the kind of systematic workplace sabotage you've been dealing with. Oliver handed me a folder. These are the details for your new role. team structure, budget, timeline, strategic objectives. We start building on Monday. The folder was thick, comprehensive, clearly something they'd been planning for months. While I'd been struggling to survive Marcus's attacks, they'd been preparing my path forward. That evening, I sat in my apartment trying to process the day's events. My phone buzzed with congratulatory messages from colleagues, job inquiries from people who'd heard about my promotion through industry networks, and interview requests from startup blogs wanting to cover the story. But the most meaningful message came from David Morrison, CEO of Morrison Industries. Heard about your new role through Oliver Chen. Congratulations. Let's schedule lunch next week to discuss how Morrison Industries can be the pilot client for your new digital transformation initiative. I always knew you had something special. It turned out that David Morrison and Oliver Chen had been college friends. When Oliver started documenting Marcus's behavior, he'd consulted David about the situation. David had confirmed everything I'd told him about Morrison Industries' strategic direction, and more importantly, had vouched for my character and capabilities. The web of connections that Marcus thought he'd severed had actually been working behind the scenes to support me. A year later, our digital transformation initiative had exceeded every target David had set. We'd landed 12 major clients, including Morrison Industries, and had grown our team to 25 people. My stock options were worth more than my previous annual salary, and I'd been promoted again to Vice President of Strategic Consulting. Marcus had been terminated the day of the all-hands meeting. Janet had received a formal reprimand and mandatory training on workplace harassment and documentation standards. Several team members who'd participated in the campaign against me had been transferred to other departments or had chosen to leave the company. The marketing department culture changed completely. The new environment emphasized collaboration, transparent communication, and shared success rather than individual credit grabbing. People felt safe to contribute ideas without fear of theft or sabotage. But the most significant change was in how I viewed workplace relationships and professional integrity. I learned that character under pressure is the most revealing test of who people really are. I learned that systematic manipulation can be defeated by systematic documentation. And I learned that the truth, given time and the right allies, has a way of surfacing despite efforts to bury it. Marcus taught me a valuable lesson about workplace predators. They're often charismatic, sophisticated, and skilled at making themselves look reasonable while making their victims look problematic. They turn collaboration into competition and teamwork into warfare. They poison wells so gradually that by the time people realize what's happening, the damage seems irreversible. But he also taught me that predators make mistakes. They assume they're the smartest person in the room. They underestimate their victims' allies and connections. They leave digital footprints because they're so confident in their manipulation that they don't think anyone is watching. Most importantly, they forget that in the business world, results ultimately matter more than politics. You can manipulate perceptions for a while, but you can't fake genuine value creation, client relationships, and strategic thinking indefinitely. Oliver Chen became a mentor and close friend. He taught me that data collection and systematic analysis could protect against subjective manipulation. He showed me how to document my contributions, track my results, and build networks of professional relationships that transcend immediate workplace politics. David Park became an advocate for my career development, eventually offering me opportunities to speak at industry conferences about building resistant organizational cultures and identifying workplace manipulation. Our company became known not just for marketing excellence, but for ethical business practices and employee development. The digital transformation initiative grew beyond anyone's initial expectations. Within 3 years, it became the primary revenue driver for our company, accounting for 60% of our total business. We opened offices in 3 additional cities and were acquired by a major consulting firm for $200 million. My team members from that original initiative became leaders throughout the new organization. We maintained the culture of mutual support and shared success that had been so lacking during Marcus's tenure. People knew their contributions would be recognized, their ideas would be protected, and their careers would be developed rather than sabotaged. Looking back, I realized that Marcus's campaign against me was simultaneously the worst and best thing that happened to my career. It nearly destroyed me professionally and emotionally, creating months of stress, self-doubt, and isolation that I wouldn't wish on anyone. But it also revealed my own resilience, forced me to develop new skills in documentation and relationship building, and ultimately led to opportunities I never would have pursued in a more comfortable environment. The pressure created diamonds. Most importantly, it taught me to recognize and respond to workplace manipulation before it reaches the level of systematic destruction. I learned the warning signs, the subtle credit theft, the concerned observations about colleagues, the documented incidents that look objective but feel orchestrated. I learned to maintain my own documentation, to build diverse professional networks, and to trust data over office gossip. I learned that integrity under pressure is both the hardest and most valuable professional skill anyone can develop. The conference room where this story began now hosts my monthly team meetings. 25 consultants who know their ideas will be protected, their contributions recognized, and their careers developed through collaboration rather than competition. Sometimes I think about Marcus and wonder what happened to his career after our company. I heard through industry contacts that he struggled to find another position at his previous level, that his reputation had been damaged by the circumstances of his termination. I don't take pleasure in his professional difficulties, but I do take satisfaction in knowing that the culture he tried to create, one of manipulation, credit theft, and colleague destruction, was replaced by something better. The building no longer holds its breath when I walk the halls. Conversations don't stop when I approach. People don't avoid eye contact or find excuses to end discussions quickly. Instead, doors open, ideas flow, problems get solved collectively, and everyone's contributions get recognized appropriately. It's the kind of workplace I always hoped to be part of, even when I didn't know such places could exist. Marcus taught me that some people will try to destroy you for their own advancement. But he also taught me that destruction-based advancement is ultimately unsustainable. Truth, integrity, and genuine value creation will outlast manipulation, credit theft, and reputation assassination. The gun he pointed at my career ultimately fired backward, destroying his own professional trajectory while launching mine beyond what I'd ever imagined possible. Some lessons can only be learned under pressure. Some strengths can only be developed through adversity. Some opportunities only appear when everything seems lost. I'm grateful for all of it now, even the pain, especially the pain, because without it, I never would have discovered what I was capable of surviving and achieving. The conference room where I thought my career would end became the launching pad for everything that followed. Sometimes the tomb becomes the resurrection chamber. Sometimes the ending is actually the beginning. And sometimes, the people trying to bury you don't realize they're planting seeds.